Good morning. Thanks for being here. This is Eric Guy, Chief Victory Officer at Center for Victory, with today's webinar on motivating through values. Hopefully, most of you that are on the line have taken time to take the values index. We're going to go over it today, how it applies to you and to other folks, hopefully inside your organization, and some takeaways as well. And I'll continue to let people in as people join. If you have not yet got to take this, the link was sent out through the webinar email. If you did not get your results, you should have received them about an hour previous to this webinar. If you have not received them, let us know, please. But we're going to go ahead and get started. This is a lot of fun. This is an assessment we've been using for a long time now. And I think all of you will enjoy it. Inside of what we call talent optimization, talent optimization is just what are you doing with your talent? It connects your business strategy with your business results. Most corporations don't have a people strategy, so this is part of that people strategy. It's part of talent optimization. What we're looking at today is going to be more part of that inspire. For smaller companies, it could possibly be part of hire. I know it is for us, but for most companies, it's going to be part of inspire. So what drives you, what motivates you to act in a way that's congruent with your behaviors. That's how we're going to come at this today. You have the PI. So some of you on the line might not be familiar with the predictive index, but most of you are, as I see your names coming up there. If you're not and you haven't taken it yet, you can go on our website and take it. But this is a level, and I'll show you a slide coming up. This is a level deeper than the PI, but we have to know our behaviors first, right? What gets us going? What are our drives behavior-wise, how we like to behave? What kind of environment we like to be in? Is it one where, it's very social? Is it informal? Is it proactive? How do we get along with one another in that? Today's webinar is meant to give you a little bit more depth into people and into yourself. So an overview. The challenge, just through a quick question here, a lot of us have when we look at talent optimization and how to get people going, how to create more discretionary effort, how to motivate people. One of the things we want to look at is why do some people consistently achieve much greater success with less effort, while others who tend to work just as hard or just as smart as us, right? Or maybe sometimes I know a lot of people they're much more intelligent than I am, even work in the same environment, achieve less. If you've heard me speak at different events, one of the things that all top performers have in common, and this is through a study years ago, the Genius study, which is self-awareness and authenticity. How aware you are of yourself, and that's what assessments, good assessments get to. There's a lot of great assessments out there, but really getting into, do I know myself? Can I take a look at myself? What are my passions? What are my talents? What are my behaviors? And then how authentic am I being to those? Do I have true conviction to surround myself in an environment where I'm using those talents, where I'm using those motivations, where I'm using those passions, and that's where it doesn't feel like work. And I don't want to give too much away about next week, but next week we're going to have a guest, another predictive index partner. He and I have known one another for a long time. Dave Nast, he'll be on the line. We'll be talking about discretionary effort, as well as we will have some of our podcasts coming up this month talking about discretionary effort in segments to help you out as well. But define self-awareness and authenticity. Those are the two top characteristics in all top performers. Doesn't matter where you work, in what environment whatsoever. So as we get into this, one of the things that I want you to think about as we go through as a takeaway, we often tell people we want them to turn right more than they turn left. In simple terms, what that means is I want you to be in the right role. I want to motivate you in the correct way. So I want to know you and manage you in a way of what you need. We can get that with a PI. We can also, there's takeaways here. When you have people that are able to turn right, and some of you on the line or in those environments, it doesn't feel like work. When you have to turn left more than right and constantly work on your weaknesses and what you're not good at, it wears you out. You can do that, but a lot of times it's not purposeful, or it doesn't feel purposeful. It could be purposeful, but it doesn't feel purposeful to that person. It doesn't get you motivated. It doesn't get you out of bed early. It's just a job, right? And what we want to look at is if I turn right more often than I turn left, I'm in my passion, I'm in my purpose. And I can help other people do that as well. But we have to know more about people as we go along. So really, as I want you to think about, really just know yourself and stay true to yourself. That's what I want you to get out of this today. So taking a look at where we're at, we're going to be at the values index. Hopefully you can see that the little arrow on your screen. This is really 3 layers deep. Those of you that have taken the predictive index, that's the how. That's your natural behavioral preference, how you prefer to use those behaviors. I often joke there's a lot of people with my behavioral PI uh, that are in the county lockup. That doesn't mean I'm going to get there too. There's other things that drive me to be a good citizen and things of this nature, right? One of them's being in the right role, and that's when people ask me why I'm happy. It's why I'm doing what I love to do. What we're going to look at today is the values index, or drivers or motivators. Why you're motivated to use the behaviors that you're naturally inclined, that are hardwired in you. Right? What I want you to think about is when we look at this, the why, drivers and motivators today, is what you're passionate about. And also, I'm going to give you some things at the end about to think about what you're not passionate about. If you have your values index, again, most of you took it, and thank you for doing that because it'll be helpful for you. It'll be helpful for me as we go through this. If you go ahead and turn to page 5, that's what we're going to be concentrating on today. Page 5 lists the 7 motivators. And I'm going to give you some background on this as well. And we're going to go through each one of these and how it might pertain to you. If you look at the PI, so the PI is the behavioral piece. It gives us a great insight to a person, what their drives are and how they're likely to behave in a certain situation. I'm going to give you an example of what it means to go a little bit deeper. A few years ago, I had an x-ray of my shoulder and they thought it was just a knot in my shoulder. And it just kept hurting. It kept hurting. And pretty soon that knot became larger on my shoulder. And I'm thinking, maybe I should go get this checked out again. And they went a little deeper. They did, I think, what they call an MRI. And they noticed that it was not just a knot in my muscle. It was actually a cyst. Cyst big enough, it was as large as a golf ball. So I have a huge scar nowadays to remind me to always dig a little bit deeper to see what's really causing people to act in a certain way. Now, it was removed, no problems there. I'm not telling you that because it's a health story. I'm telling you that if you take time to look deeper into what's really driving people, especially nowadays when we talk about inspire, it helps with our management of people. The bigger thing that it helps on is keeping our people, keeping them engaged, keeping them in the company so they don't leave, and getting all that discretionary effort out of them. So just a little bit deeper dive into the whole person. Some of you might want to know this of how all this started and where it came from. A lot of research in here, again, with a lot of the assessments. What we're really looking at is motivation. So I want you to think of what gets you going, passion, as we go through each one of these. So there's seven. There's seven motivators. That's what's inside of you. Again, high motivators, when you see on page 5, when that motivator is high, you should have a couple that stick out that are high. Um, those are the ones that you're very passionate about. Your action after this, those are the ones I want you to run to. So how you would use that in a business setting might be during performance management time. You sit down and talk about with that person, hey, what are you passionate about? What can we do more of? Because when you run towards your passion, you feel more purposeful. A lot of people, we get stuck in roles. They might be the right roles behaviorally, uh, but we're just not motivated by them quite as much. All right, we want to try to stay away from those things that de-energize or demotivate us. So the first one there, if your aesthetic is high, so you'll see the standard deviations on page 5. If that's one of your highest, what that means is you have more of a passion for harmony, peace. Okay, if it's one of your lowest, it happens to be one of my lowest. Um, it doesn't mean that I don't want harmony. It just doesn't mean that I'm real passionate about it. So for a person with a high aesthetic value inside of a company, they might really appreciate that corner office. It's decorated nice, it's painted nice. And then you might see that other person that where it's real low, they don't care where they sit. Um, years and years and years ago, about 20 years ago, when we were just getting started, um, I had 2 filing cabinets and I laid a piece of plywood over them, and my wife would always shake her head at me and said, doesn't that bother you? And it really didn't. Okay. Now I appreciate a nice office and everything like that, but I'm not motivated by those things. The other thing that might motivate that kind of person with a high aesthetic value, other than a nice office, nice pictures on the wall, very Zen-like, or would also be warm coworkers, especially a more caring and empathetic manager. Okay, passionate about creating harmony, driven to remove anxieties, disharmony in relationships and surroundings. This is a person, take somebody with a PI that might be a low A, high B, high C kind of person with a high aesthetic drive. And this is the person that just everybody loves. They want to create that harmony. They're good at bringing people together. You want to make sure that you help them avoid confrontation. They're going to be more drawn to calm environments, but can also be that catalyst for calming other people down as well. Next one is economic. So that economic piece, if that's really high for you, you might be motivated by a little bit by money or driven by more efficiencies, passionate about winning. You might love to check those boxes. And these people really, with that high motivator for economic, um, could also be okay with part of their income being at risk. One of the things that we like to point out here is not everybody is motivated by money. Um, and we see that with these 7 motivators doing this assessment. The other thing to point out here is these type of people with really high economic really get de-energized by time wasters that they work around with, so they might not get along well with other people that are like that. On the flip side of that, it might really energize them to be around people that are very much more time efficient. They might be more incentivized by a trip at the end of the year, hitting a goal, money wise. When you see that individualistic piece, I mean, I think Frank Sinatra in a song, I Did It My Way, right? If you have that high individualistic piece, it just means you want to put um, more of your own spin on things. Those kind of folks have tendencies to be recognized as different. And again, this can be all over the map. It just doesn't have to be PI wise or behavior. You can have somebody that's individualistic, that's a high A, low C. You can have somebody that's in their PI, and you can have somebody that's a high C, low A, that's high individualistic. Um, some things to point out is they're very passionate about their own mark, on a project or things like that. Could get argumentative because you didn't use their words, but this is some folks that just like their own unique way of doing things. They might have their own unique way of dressing, things like that. I remember a gentleman used to work for a client of mine. He had a different bow tie for every day of the month, and that was his signature thing. That was kind of how he stuck out. He liked to do his own thing. In that realm, he had very high individualistic motivator. But appreciate their uniqueness there. Political is not about political party. It has to do with leadership. If this is high for you, um, people with a high political value or a high political passion tend to want to take the lead. And again, you could have that high political motivator with different behavioral profiles. And this is where some people mistake. They say, well, what's a leader? And they'll go to the PI, the predictive index, and they'll say, well, a lot of people make the mistake of, well, high A, low C. Well, that just doesn't necessarily mean that's a leader. That means that person's very proactive, but that may not be what leads or motivates them. A good example of this is in the sales field. You might have a really good salesperson who's very driven, okay, but they might not be driven to lead, and sometimes we'll make offers to them. So they did well in sales for 5, 10 years, maybe 15 years. They were just crushing it. And all of a sudden we say, hey, look, why don't you step into this role as sales manager? Well, if that political value, that political passion is really low, they're not going to be motivated to do such a good job in that. They'd rather be out doing other things. Maybe they're high individualistic, maybe they're high economic. So that need to lead isn't innate in them, and so they're always having to push to try to do that if you put them in a role like that. People with high political value there, when it's really high, driven to take charge, opportunity to lead. Okay, this kind of person will naturally take ownership of everything. And so even as they come in, as you onboard people, if you had this in addition to something like the PI, you want to make sure that you put them and give them opportunity, or paint the picture for them in your onboarding that, hey, look, here's opportunity leads here. Here's an opportunity to take the lead in this. And it can be little things at first until they prove that they can handle it, and then move to bigger things. Altruistic. This is a motivator for some people, driven to help for the sake of helping. I mean, these just people that really love to help, are very service oriented. Uh, they run towards opportunities to give of time, give of service, give to resource of others. They're really happy when they're serving the team, their fellow employees, when they're in a job where they can serve others. I know, I often joke that my wife and I, our PIs are completely, utterly different from one another. But one of the things that motivates us, that brings us together, is both of our altruistic motivators are our highest. And we've always had that passion to help people, so much that we made it one of our core values. which is in simplest terms is our core value that taps into this altruistic piece is called Be Like Fred. So some of you that are from the Pittsburgh area might know Fred as Mr. Rogers. I'm sure many of you, or if not all of you on the call, have seen him. But one of our core values is about being altruistic, giving back, service orientation, being loyal. And we like to do that for everybody internally, but even externally for our customers. So one of the things that we actually do in our hiring, this is where I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we like to see is at HOT, one of those three top motivators for people, even if they fit the behavioral profile and the cognitive profile at the PI, we love to see that altruistic be a little bit higher, because that brings them into a culture of service, and that's who we are. A lot of bigger companies struggle doing that, especially because of the talent pool nowadays. But that's one of the things that we actually look for, and we do that also pre-hire as well. One of the things that I wanted to point out with the altruistic piece, you might have, and we're talking about sales again, you might have a salesperson who's extremely high altruistic and very low economic. This is that salesperson that's wired for sales, maybe outside sales, but that just gives everything away. Right? And you really have to work with that person to say, okay, look, I know you want to be of service to others, but you have to eat. So this is one of those things that when we're working with sales teams, we like to see if this is high. This is not a bad thing if it's high. I told you mine, that's my highest. I had to learn long ago that if I was going to be good at sales, I just couldn't give everything away. And we found a happy medium with that. And for most of my team, it's the same thing. We don't want to give everything away, but we still need to make a living. But we love that, to being able to be able to serve other people, to be able to serve internally and externally. Regulatory. So that regulatory driver, what that's about, driven to create congruence between their beliefs about the world and the world. This person is extremely passionate about creating processes and solving problems. So you might have somebody that say they're really high C, high D in the PI, and very high regulatory. This person's even driven even more to create those processes and solve problems. This person's really fed by establishing structure for the greater good. The difficulty that they might have is it can be hard for them to accept others whose view of the world is drastically contrary to theirs. Some things to look for. And the last one is theoretical. If you have a high theoretical drive, you love knowledge for knowledge's sake. These are the kind of people that are really especially driven to look for a specialty. So they want to be known for something that they do and they do well. This is the person that you motivate inside your company by helping them enhance their expertise. So if you have a person that's very high theoretical, you might want to send that person to a conference, get them extra schooling. They really appreciate it because to them, knowledge is power. For somebody that's very low theoretical, they're going to struggle in that a little bit. Say, well, everybody gets to go to the conference. Well, that person with that high theoretical says, I don't want to be anywhere near that. Right? But the person with the high says, yeah, that's what I want to do. It just enhances the knowledge that I already have. So that's that's just an overview of those things. So the theoretical, again, I know I just didn't get that screen up. I apologize for that. I did go over it, but that person really loves problem solving, loves doing the research, always looking for something better to do. So again, we're going back to high and low motivators. We want to run to those high ones. So those top 2 or 3 on page 5. I'm going to give you some action steps here. And then keep in mind that when you have those really long days, you're either one in the not in the right role. If you're not in the right role, you're either getting managed improperly. And if it's not that, it could be that you're just not passionate about some of the things that you're doing and you're trying to do those most of the day instead of running towards what really motivates you. Those are your high motivators. So some practical application, we're diving into some of that. So I want you to think drive or passion for. So the top 3 that you might have. Say if your top 3 are altruistic, political, and individualistic. How I might term that is that person has a high passion to help people or to serve people in their own unique way. That's the individualistic piece, in a way where they can lead, the political piece. That would be how we would put those 3 drivers together. Most people have 2 or 3 that are really high and then 2 or 3 that are low. Every once in a while you get people that are across the board, but usually we're one way or another. You want to try to implement this. The way I would implement that is maybe in, like I said earlier, maybe in some performance management. Let's talk about what gets you going. I always like going out and taking, even if it's part of my vacation time. I always used to love taking vacation to go and do work overseas for people. I used to do a lot of work with kids, with people that work with at-risk youth. That was really fun to me. And even though it was hard work, it didn't feel like hard work. So hopefully that's a good example of that. Practical application. Look at your top 2 or 3 motivators. So these are your action steps. How do these passions or appetites get fed at work? This is your homework. How do you feed them in your personal life? Right? Are you being conscious about it? Most people, up until the point that they take an assessment like this, are just very unconscious about it. Again, going back to what we said earlier, don't have a lot of self-awareness. Once you get that self-awareness, how can I be more authentic to that and bring that into my work environment? Take your lowest motivator. Are you hindering yourself by trying to focus too much on your lowest motivator? And do you have a story around that? I've shared a couple of stories with you, and I hope that they're helpful. In your assessment that you got, it's long. We mostly pay attention to page 5 with all those graphs, but here's some homework for you. So you have this. So this was sent out to you. So they have some really great questions here that you can sit down. I know one of my clients, I think a couple of you are on the phone or on this Zoom call, when they have a coaching program where they have a coach assigned to all their employees. This might be a good time to use something like this in a structure like that. Just real good questions that go through. What it does, so we want you to fire those networks. We want to light up your brain. The best way to get that is to look at what you're passionate about. That's going to point you towards your purpose. So take time inside your work environments and inside your personal life to look at these things and see if you can't move towards or run towards those things that you're really passionate about. And I hopefully that word helps. I know that's helped me and helped a lot of our clients. Not just what motivates you, what you're passionate about, what you're very passionate about, and try to look to incorporate more of those things inside the work environment. If you're very high altruistic, maybe it's just helping other people. inside your work environment. Maybe it's doing more with your family, doing more with your kids. Could be anything, but look look to those pages and look to some of those questions to answer them, and I think you'll get more motivated and probably get even more discretionary effort out of yourself as you move towards that. So I'm going to open it up for questions here, and I'm going to bring up, I know some people, there were quite a few people that were chatting in the chat box here, so I'm going to bring that up and open it up for questions. Can't get my chat box up. Oh yeah, some people said there were some audio issues. I think there was a connection issue earlier, so I apologize for that. If you have other questions, you can always get in touch with us via phone after this webinar. It will be recorded too. Does anybody have any questions at this time on how to utilize something like this? If we don't have any questions, just a couple things coming up here in the near future that I wanted to make you aware of. Some upcoming events that we have. Next week, as I said, we have a webinar with another PI partner on discretionary effort. You might want to tune in for that as well. October 1st, we have our Managing People to Perform trainings in Pittsburgh and in Memphis. October 1st and 2nd, we have our PI Jedi training, the 2-day in Pittsburgh and Memphis. You want to join us October 8th, where one of our consultants, Ms. Colleen Redshaw, will be talking about spooky, scary, accurate to theme of the month, with Halloween coming up, about the accuracy and validity of these assessments and how to use them more in best practice scenarios. The couples retreat, I believe it's all sold out in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, October 5th and 8th. October 17th, another webinar, Making Your Weaknesses Irrelevant. And October 21st, we'll be in Cleveland, Ohio, with training Managing People to Perform, and then the PI Jedi training, the PI practitioner training, also in Cleveland, Ohio, October 21st and 22nd. And then I think there was one last thing to remind you of. Yeah, just our customer focused sales training. That's a BOGO offer. Again, that's November 7th in Pittsburgh. Pay for one participant. You get to bring somebody for free, or you can just split the cost with somebody. And also to celebrate Veterans Day, our first 25 vets that sign up for that are absolutely free. It's on us. No other questions. If there are no other questions, wait, the one that came in. Yes, had a question here. Is there some way to talk to someone individually about my values report we've received? Absolutely. You can either shoot me an email and I'll hook you up with one of our consultants, or you can call the office, 724-462-8383. Either way, we'll get you hooked up with one of our consultants to review those results with you and let us know. Let us know that if you have your PI as well, and we can give you, we can put those two together for you. Another person asked, I didn't get registered until just prior to the webinar. Can I get a copy? Yeah, a copy. If you go on, where was it in? It was in their email, right? The link to take it. Yeah, it was in the email that came out. If you didn't get that, question, I think, Robin, if you didn't get that link, we can send you another one, but we'd be happy to send that to you. Yes, this recording, it is recorded. David, you said, can I get my results? You took it late. Absolutely, David. We'll send you it right after this call. Not a problem at all, and thanks for taking. Anybody else? Any questions? Wanted to remind you all as we're closing out the year. I know it seems maybe for some of you like a long ways away from the end of the year. It's coming up on us quickly. If you're a predictive index client, make sure you're scheduling your tune-ups with us. Your tune-ups are part of your contract, your PI contract. Those are free. All that costs you is travel. And if you're close by, it doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is get in touch with your PI consultant, tell them what you're looking for, and that could be anything. It's specific to you. That could be, hey, look, we just need a little workshop on coaching. We need a little workshop on performance management. So please make sure you're scheduling those as well. I know after this webinar, I'm getting ready to go up and do one myself for a client. So make sure you're scheduling those. Those are just another great way to reinforce PI in your company. And for those of you that are, you know, the only few of the PI Jedis in your company, it takes a little bit more of the onus off of you and lets us help you in a way where it doesn't seem quite as daunting to roll things out, especially when you have people that don't know what's going on and why you're using the PI. So it just helps in that manner as well. I don't see any more questions coming in. So at this time, I'll say adios. I really appreciate all you guys joining in. This will be recorded. You can get a recording on our YouTube channel. We'll have it up. We'll probably send it out quite shortly. If you're on our email list, you'll get it in that blast as well. We'll see you next week as we talk about discretionary effort. Same time, same place. Talk to you soon. Thanks for joining.